Hello and welcome to the Genetics and Evolution HD tutorial series for iPad. I'm Russell Myers, and in this series I'll be taking you through in detail how to use all the main features and functions of the app. In this first tutorial I'll focus on the Pedigree Analyzer, which is the top module in the main menu on the left. When you enter the Pedigree Analyzer, you're presented with a pedigree representing how a family has been affected by a certain hypothetical trait. The aim is then for you to deduce the mode or modes of inheritance which are consistent with the inheritance pattern shown in the pedigree. If you don't like the pedigree that's displayed, you can generate another one by pressing or tapping the New Pedigree button until you find a pedigree which you would like to solve. Okay, let's try this one. First we'll explain the legend which appears on the top right. Squares are male individuals, circles are female individuals. Each family member in the pedigree is numbered, so we can refer to those individuals later. Filled in shapes are individuals afflicted with a trait, non-filled in shapes are unafflicted individuals, and grey shapes are partially afflicted if relevant. Down the bottom it shows us how many modes of inheritance listed below are consistent with the inheritance pattern shown in the pedigree. In this instance it's showing us that there's one consistent mode of inheritance in the list below that is consistent with the pedigree displayed. So the first thing we need to do is choose which one that is, and then once we've done that we can go on to deduce the genotypes of each of the individuals in the pedigree for that mode of inheritance. So looking at this pedigree we can see that individuals 4 and 10, who are both unafflicted, had 2 unafflicted offspring but also 2 afflicted offspring, suggesting recessive inheritance. We can also see individual 2, who's afflicted and female, had an unafflicted male offspring, number 4, ruling out X-linked. So autosomal recessive seems to be a good candidate, and tapping on that we can see we are correct. So when you select a mode of inheritance, not only does it tell you whether it's correct or not, but it also tells you how many individuals in the pedigree have inferable genotypes based on the mode of inheritance selected. In this case, 11 of the individuals have inferable genotypes, and so far we have deduced 0 of them. You'll notice there's actually 14 total individuals in the pedigree, so obviously 3 of them have non-inferable genotypes based on the information given. So they're represented as big A dash. Okay, to deduce the inferable genotypes, well, firstly you can either tap the Reveal Genotypes button, which I won't do right now, but that will solve the pedigree for you and will display all the genotypes relevant for this mode of inheritance if you just want to display them. But let's try and solve this one ourselves. So we have an autosomal recessive pattern, so we can infer that afflicted individuals will have little a, little a being the recessive allele. So on the genotype toolbox we can tap the little a button, and then we tap all the individuals that we think have little a. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll tap individual 13, 14, 3, and 2. If we happen to tap on an individual which is incorrect, number 6 here, we can clear it by tapping on the blank genotype in the toolbox and then re-tapping on the individual to clear them. Okay, so now we have 4 individuals inferred. Okay, so what else can we deduce? Well, from the individuals 4 and 10 pairing, who are both unafflicted, they managed to have 2 afflicted offspring, so they must be heterozygous. They must both carry a recessive allele. So we can tap the heterozygous big A, little a genotype in the toolbox and tap on both of those individuals. We can also see the individual 1 and 2 pairing. They had an unafflicted offspring number 4, but they also had an afflicted child number 3. So therefore, individual 1 must be heterozygous, must actually carry the recessive allele to pass to number 3. So we can tap on number 1 to mark it as heterozygous as well. Now, individual 3, who's afflicted, had unafflicted children 6, 7, 8 and 9. So they must all have inherited, obviously, a little a from number 3, but they can't have 2 little a's, otherwise they'd be afflicted. So they must be heterozygous as well. So we can mark those. And that solved the pedigree for all 11 inferable genotypes. Those that can't be inferred from the information given are marked as big A dash. Okay, so now we've fully solved this pedigree because there only was one consistent inheritance pattern. If there were more, we'd have to choose more from the list below and solve those as well. So what we could do now is tap the new pedigree button to get another pedigree to solve. Okay, so now we're going to look at some of the options available within the Pedigree Analyzer. The first is the info button. Like in all modules, if you tap the info button, you'll get some more information, quick start information about the module. Secondly, you can tap the menu button on the right to get quick access to the menu. Tapping the online manual will give you more information about the Pedigree Analyzer, as per all other modules. To get to the menu, you can also swipe right and left to get rid of it, or you can tap the left arrow button on the top to exit the module. Okay, lastly, we'll look at the settings button on the top. If we tap that, we see the settings available. The first 3 settings relate to the frequency, or how often some of the types of modes of inheritance appear when we generate pedigrees. By default, the common modes of inheritance generated are autosomal recessive, autosomal dominant, X-linked recessive, and X-linked dominant. For others, we can adjust the frequency. For example, for Y-linked pedigrees, they're default to rarely generated, but we can tap on the button there to adjust that to either never generate them or commonly generate them. Mitochondrial, similarly, default to rarely appear, but we can adjust that as well. And no dominance or incomplete dominance pedigrees default to never generated, but we can switch those on if we want to test ourselves on those as well. The next settings relate to the autofill settings for Y-linked and mitochondrial pedigrees. By default, these are switched on, which means once you've recognized a pedigree as Y-linked or mitochondrial, the app will automatically fill out the genotypes for you, because it's quite a trivial exercise to recognize genotypes for those types of inheritance, but you can switch those off if you want yourself. And lastly, we have the hint switch, which simply indicates whether the info help page appears every time you go into the Pedigree Analyzer or not. And that can be switched off in the pop-up button, which appears as well. Okay, so now we're going to look at each of the possible modes of inheritance,
starting with autosomal dominant. So here is a pedigree that's consistent with autosomal dominant.
Consistent with autosomal dominant.
For this one,
for this type,
for autosomal dominant, you have the big A allele is dominant, the little a allele is recessive.
So therefore, individuals in the pedigree will have at
unafflicted
least one big A
individuals will be little a, because
unafflicted
individuals will have at least one big A.
So therefore, select
we can deduce,
in the toolbox,
for example,
and mark each of the unafflicted individuals immediately.
The white individuals
Next
are
we can
look
at
we can also see, for example,
3 and 5,
2 afflicted
both
parents
afflicted, but they actually
had some unafflicted children.
So therefore they must
be
heterozygous,
etc.
Now we could keep going, or
in
this case we'll tap the reveal genotypes, but to reveal the rest of the genotypes.
Possible ones.
Next up, we'll look at autosomal recessive, which we already encountered in our main example earlier. Now, we haven't actually selected which is the consistent pattern yet, so we've deduced it by looking at individuals 4 and 8, which were unafflicted but had afflicted male and female offspring. So we've deduced autosomal recessive. For autosomal recessive, big A is dominant and little a is recessive again, but afflicted individuals will have little a. So we can select little a in the genotype toolbox and then tap on those individuals that are afflicted. Again, we could continue deducing, but in this case, we'll tap on the Reveal Genotypes button to auto-reveal the remainder. Here's an example of an X-linked recessive pedigree. So we can see, for example, an afflicted female, number 2, passing down to male in the next generation, but not passing to females. You can also see an afflicted male, number 15, not passing the affliction down to the next generation. So let's tap on X-linked recessive. So for X-linked recessive, we have X big A being the dominant allele on the X chromosome, X little a being the recessive. So afflicted females will be X little a, afflicted males will be X little a Y. Let's look at the afflicted female first, X little a, and the afflicted males, X little a Y. Let's tap those. Okay, unafflicted males will be X big A Y. So let's tap those. Okay, we can also see that individual number 2 is a recessive X little a, so must have passed recessive allele to number 3, who will be a carrier. So let's mark individual 3 as XA, big A, X little a, like so. Then we can tap Reveal All Genotypes to see the rest. Now we'll look at a pedigree which has an inheritance pattern which is consistent with the X-linked dominant mode of inheritance. So if we tap X-linked dominant in the list down the bottom, we now see that the possible genotypes alleles are X big A for the dominant allele on the X chromosome, X little a for the recessive allele which is on the X chromosome, and of course males have only one X chromosome, so the other chromosome is Y. So the possible genotypes for females are X big A, X big A, X big A, X little a, or X little a, X little a, and for males X big A Y or X little a Y. For X-linked dominant, X little a Y males will be unafflicted, so we'll select X little a Y and tap the unafflicted males. X big A Y individuals will be afflicted, so we'll tap that and tap the afflicted males. Now, in X-linked dominant, an afflicted female could be either X big A, or X big A, X little a, given that the big A is dominant. So we see, for example, offspring number 5, she had an unafflicted male child and an afflicted male child. So she must carry both. Must be X big A, X little a. And we'll tap the Reveal Genotypes to let the app generate the rest. Note again the X big A dash individual can't be inferred as they could be for this information. They could be either X big A or X big A, X little a, and there's not enough information to decide. Now we'll look at a no dominance pedigree. By default, these are switched off, as I stated earlier, and can be switched on in the settings. Okay, autosomal no dominance. We have, in this case, little a individuals will be afflicted, big A will be unafflicted, and big A heterozygous will be partially afflicted. So deducing the genotypes in this case is straightforward. As we said, unafflicted individuals will be big A, afflicted individuals will be little a, and partially afflicted individuals will be heterozygous, big A, little a. And of course we can hit the reveal genotypes button to complete that. This is a pedigree that's consistent with mitochondrial inheritance. So here we can see that an individual male, number 1, who is afflicted, does not pass the affliction down to their offspring, but individual 4, female, who's afflicted, will pass to all her offspring. Okay, in this case, we represent individuals with afflicted allele as big M and unafflicted allele as little m. So it's quite a straightforward exercise to deduce the genotypes. Obviously, the little m individuals afflicted and the big M individuals afflicted. Since it is so trivial, we normally set the autofill option to on to automatically fill the genotypes here. I've switched it off for this exercise only. Lastly, we have a Y-linked pedigree. This pedigree is consistent with Y-linked. Only males are afflicted and no females are afflicted. For afflicted males, they pass on the affliction to all their offspring, etc. So in this case, we represent the genotypes as a big Y as a Y chromosome unafflicted, a little Y chromosome afflicted, and X chromosomes just as an X. So we can see males that have X little y are afflicted. We can mark those. And males that are unafflicted, we mark as X big Y as such. And all females are XX. Again, a trivial exercise to fill in the genotype. So we normally have the autofill setting on for this this type of pedigree. And that concludes the Pedigree Analyzer tutorial. Stay tuned for the next in the series, which will be on the cross simulator module. Thanks for watching.